We'll call this regular city council meeting to order on May 6th, 2024 at 6:02 PM. Roll call, please.
Mr. Eimer,
Present.
Mr. Bateman,
Present.
Mr. Sanders,
Present.
Mr. Parrott,
Present.
Mr. Downs,
Present.
Mrs. Ross,
Present.
Mrs. O'Donoghue.
Present.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first item up is public participation. Is there anybody that would like to speak under public participation tonight? Okay, for the record, there's no public participation. Next item up is the oath of office for Daniel Carr, promotion to sergeant.
Please raise your right hand. Say aye.
I,
Your name,
Daniel Carr,
and repeat after me. Have been appointed
have been appointed
to the office of sergeant
to the office of sergeant
in the city of Lincoln,
in the city of Lincoln,
county of Logan.
county of Logan.
Do solemnly swear
Do solemnly swear
that I'll support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
of the state of Illinois,
of the state of Illinois,
and I'll faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of sergeant
of the office of sergeant
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Need your signature.
It's been a
That's the most important paper you're signing.
thank you.
Okay. Next item up is item number 6, Christy Frisier with the DARE program. Christy? In the hot seat.
Front and center.
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Floor is yours.
Okay, so I guess I first need to explain the DARE program. Those of you who went to school here and are young enough to remember, the program started in 1983 as the Just Say No program. The Just Say No program was in schools for many, many years, and basically it just really focused on the negative effects of drugs and alcohol. In 2009-ish, schools, police departments started to give DARE America feedback saying, we're not so sure this is working anymore. We're going into classrooms, and these kids know more about drugs and alcohol than we do. So DARE America hired a bunch of professors, doctors, veteran teachers, veteran officers, and they came up with a new curriculum. It's called the Keeping It Real curriculum, and it is an evidence-based program that starts as young as preschool age through high school, and basically it's like a scaffolding effect. You start and then you build upon each thing you teach. We do focus a little bit on the negative effects of drugs and alcohol, but the biggest thing we're teaching these kids is decision-making skills, and we start very young. I'll go into preschools and talk to kids about, when you're in the store with an adult, you don't run away from them because you could get lost. What would happen? Don't run out into the street chasing your toy because what could happen? and just teaching them good decision-making skills. And then we just start to build on that. And the thought process behind this is, once they know how to make good decision-making skills and they can, better combat problems when they're faced with them, they will carry that into adulthood. Dare America has done tons and tons of research on this, and it's been proven effective. If you're interested, you can go to the DARE website. They have a bunch of different universities that have done studies on it, and they've determined this is so much better than it was, basically. Our local program has been around forever. We've had a number of DARE officers come and go. I took over the program when Ken Greenslate retired and decided if I'm going to take over the program, I'm going to kind of do it the way I want to do it. And it's been very successful. I have a lot of feedback, not only from the kids in the classrooms, but from the community. I constantly have people reaching out to me, hey, can you come talk to this group about something? Can you come cook out for our kids at this event? The kids love it. I always invite all of the other officers to come and join us. It's a great way for them the kids in our community, the adults in our community, to interact with the police department in a very positive way. And that's just kind of what we've done with our program here. So, I'll be glad to field questions.
Mr. Parrott?
Yeah, I like data. Do we have a drug problem in Lincoln?
I think that we can say there's a drug problem everywhere. Until there's no problem, there's a problem.
So I'm just kind of curious. I mean, if we have a problem, is it local citizens growing up here, or is it individuals moving into the community, or what can we do to help lessen that problem that you agree we have?
I think that starting at a young age and, like I said, teaching these kids how to make a good decision, how to, go about avoiding situations where there may be a problem. If you are confronted with a situation that you're suddenly in where you're like, there are things here that I don't want to be a part of, how do I leave this situation comfortably? I think that we need to approach these kids and teach them these skills because, unfortunately, when we were all young, we had adults in our lives that taught us, right from wrong. This day and age, most of the kids take their advice from social media and what they see, and they need more positive role models in their lives. So I don't know necessarily if I can answer if kids here are growing up with a problem or if they're moving here with a problem. I think a lot of times it's just kind of what they're faced with in life turns them the wrong way.
If you could have one or two things to help this problem, what is it that you would request?
More cops.
Well, that takes care of the crime per se, right?
I think it takes care of the prevention part of it too, because like I said, when I go out and do cookouts for kids or go to the park and hang out with them during the summer or go to their sporting events, they look at that as I'm not the person that's going to arrest them. I'm not the bad guy that's going to arrest mom or dad or aunt, uncle, whoever. And like I said, I always invite all of the other officers to come and join me. A lot of times I'll have 6, 7 officers that'll show up, and it's very positive for these kids. So I think, more cops obviously would take care of the crime part, but I think it plays a huge part in the prevention as well.
And do you have much parental? I would think that would be a big portion of it as well too, because if you have parental education, I think that would probably also help them at home with the students too.
Yeah, we have the Dare America. The good thing about how they're running their program now is they will reach out to state coordinators and they'll ask, what are some things that you're seeing in your area that are problems for our youth or for your community in general. State coordinators then, report back, this is what we're seeing, and if they get a lot of coordinators that are telling them, we have a problem with this, they will create a curriculum for that. When overdoses become a big thing, they created a curriculum geared specifically towards the opioid epidemic and heroin. And we start very young with that. I mean, we're not going into kindergarten, first grade and telling kids, don't put a needle in your arm. We are going in saying, if there's medicine in your cabinet, it's not candy. You can't play with these sort of things. And like I said, then it's just kind of building upon everything. So it's hard to answer those questions. I have a lot of people that'll say, how do you know the program is successful? And my answer is, how do I know it's not? I have no idea how many kids that, not just me, but all of our DARE officers have reached.
Alderman Bateman.
So, I agree. To me, the best way to prevent substance abuse is keeping the youth busy. You just put on a program at the rec. My grandson went to basketball and stuff. So I think I agree with you. When the children become sedentary in the house, that's when their parents aren't always watching their social media and they do those kind of things. So I'm a big advocate of giving things for kids to do, keep them busy, even if it's not inside the house, if it's places they can go, things they can do, interact with other people. And I'm assuming by giving more funds, you can schedule more of those kind of things, which I know my grandson talks about it all the time. So he likes, we don't specifically talk about DARE. He'll just, when I pick him up or drop him off, it's like, hey, I'm going to this, it's put on by DARE, I'm going to this, put on by that. And it keeps, I see his group getting bigger of kids that are just not sitting at home on the computer. They're out interacting, which is important to me. So if you can touch on what more funds would do to help you create those kind of things, that would be important to me.
So it's hard to say exactly what all of the money is spent on. We do put on a lot of events. We take kids to Peoria to a Chiefs baseball game every year. I buy those tickets. We, of course, host the party at the Park District. We do a lot of cookouts. For a long time, we were doing fishing derbies, which COVID hit, and those have kind of been put back. But now I've been contacted like, hey, when can we get the fishing derbies going again? I'm all for those things. It was probably 10, 12 years ago, I purchased a big pull-behind grill. That was huge for us to just hook it to one of our squad cars, take it out, take it to parks, anywhere, cook hot dogs for kids. I've since then upgraded that grill. We just got a new one. They love that. I would love to be able to, there's another police department that I'm aware of. They have a ice cream cart that they will take with their grills and stuff, or they'll just pull up at a park during the summer and hand out ice cream to kids. I would be big on that. Best case scenario would be if I had unlimited funds, I would have something that the kids could go and do every day. We have a lot of buildings in town that are just sitting empty that, like, my grand mind with all the money in the world would be, let's put a skating rink in one of those. Let's put an arcade there, on weekends, have DJs. I have no idea how much money that would take. I have no idea what it would cost upkeep, but if we could do something like that, that would be great. I'm in the schools every day, and the number one thing I hear from all of the kids and their parents is, we don't have anything to do. There's nothing to do. And they'll ask me, Officer Vergé, what are you doing this weekend? Are you going to be somewhere? Can we come see you this weekend? There's nothing for them to do. So it's hard, and it's hard for me to say, why don't you go to the movies? Well, we've done that 4 times. We've seen the same movie over and over again. it's hard when they don't have anything to do. So I would love to be able to expand, get ideas from them. What do you guys want to do? Tell me what you want to do. Let's go. Let's go pick up game of wiffle ball, something.
Alderman Downs.
So I don't. First off, I want to say I'm a big advocate of DARE. I really like what you do. Thank you for everything
Thank
that you
you.
do. With that being said, do you know approximately what your budget was last year?
Yeah, it's so hard to say. So I run 100% off of donations. I may go months and not get any donations. And then I have a handful of donors that will just randomly send me money, and they will say, we need to be anonymous. We don't want anybody to know that we're sending it to you because we don't want to upset family or anybody else, or have other people coming to us asking us. It would be hard for me to say how much comes in and how much I spend. The last couple of months, I've spent a lot. We bought Peoria Chiefs baseball tickets. I had the party at the Park District. There were some kids that were coming to school still wearing snow boots. And so I went and bought them shoes. It's so hard. I may spend $3,000 one month and then go 2 months and only spend $50. There's no real way for me to say, this is my budget and this is exactly what goes out and this is exactly what comes in, because I just really don't know from.
That's fine. And the only reason I was asking is because we're discussing 5% of some tax coming to you, so I was just wanting to know if that would be enough for what you.
I make do with what I have. I would love for you to give me 100%, but I'm not going to be greedy.
And then my last question: if there's outside groups unaffiliated with the city that want to donate or help, how do we?
Yeah, they can contact me, obviously, call the police department. Anybody there knows, if anybody calls the police department and says, hey, we have a question about donating to DARE, it gets to me. They all know. So.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Rolfs?
Christy, you mentioned, if you could imagine your dream world for these kids, and it would maybe all kids, you would have to have a facility that you could count on, because for the most part, right? It's not something like, well, this week we'll go here and this week we'll go there. If you're going to plan out activities, would you need a building to rent or something, or?
Well, I could plan out activities without a building,
Okay.
especially when the weather is nice. It's very easy. When I say in a perfect world, the kids would have something to do every night, I think it wouldn't be me necessarily through the DARE program funding, like I said before, an arcade or a skating rink or something like that. But if this money could help go towards that, to help a new business come to town and open something like that. Like I said, I just drive by and I see like the old Big R or where Eagle Grocery Store was at. And I'm like, those buildings, they're just sitting there. And, if I could just get in there and, put a stage in there where kids could go and sing karaoke and, have fun, it would be awesome. But I'm a police officer. I'm not a business owner. I would have no idea where to begin with that. But if I got to make all the rules and there was unlimited amount of money, I would find a way to do it.
So how do you perceive those activities? Does that take them away from social media, which is a big factor in where they get involved with?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You can ask your grandson. Not one kid had their phone out.
From his phone right now. For that very reason.
When we throw parties and, go and cook out with these kids and toss a football around, play basketball, they don't have their phones out. Their phones are put away. The only time they'll get them out is to take a picture, take a selfie with a police officer, take a video of, us, shooting hoops or whatever. But their phones are down. They're staying off of it. And I think, and it's not just Lincoln. This is this generation everywhere. They live on their phones. They live on social media, and we need more positive influences for them.
Do you have other volunteers other than just police officers that help with this program? or
It depends on where the event is at. When we did the fishing derby, I had a ton of people that would come out and help with that. The pizza party that we just had, I reached out to the high school and they sent me a bunch of National Honor Society kids, which is, again, is a great way for kids to look up to kids that aren't old people like me. And, you know, like these are high school kids and they're great kids and they're athletes and we get to hang out with them. And so I try to incorporate as many people as I can, police officers and, you know, just like I said, positive role models for these kids.
Alderman Downs.
Sorry, I may have missed it, but what age do you, what grade level of kids?
We
do you work
go,
with?
I go into preschools and I'll read books to kids and then we'll talk and I'll talk to them about good decision making and, you know, being polite and, you know, what they should do, what they shouldn't do. And I kind of put it back on that, like, what's the right thing to do in these situations? And they'll tell me, and they're always so eager to give the right answer. And, but yeah, we start very young.
When do you end though? Like what's the oldest kids you work with?
Well, right now we are at the 7th grade level. And the reason behind that is we have a high school curriculum, but the high school has a number of things that they're teaching that kind of mimic what the DARE program could
Good.
teach. So, and they have an officer out there, and he's a very good role model for those kids and a good asset for the high school.
And my last question, you mentioned drugs and alcohol. Does your curriculum address cigarettes and gambling?
We do. Cigarettes, not as much, just because our kids aren't smoking so much, but the vaping. And Dare America actually, when vaping became a thing, they realized this is an issue and they actually created a curriculum for vaping. A number of years ago, we had a lot of schools and communities were losing kids to suicide, and Dare America recognized that, and they created a program called More Than Sad. The More Than Sad program, we take our school counselors and we go into classrooms and talk, you know, about suicide prevention, what you can do if you know, are down, who can you contact, those sort of things. So when they realize something is going on, they push out a curriculum for it, and we're using them.
So is the tobacco smoking going down?
The actual cigarette smoking is going down, but the vaping is just continuing to go up, and it's got, I mean, it's worse than the smoking at this, like smoking cigarettes at this point.
Real quickly. One thing that I feel may not have been addressed, which I think is very important, is to identify that DARE and the police department are completely separate. The police department supports DARE, and we send our officers to the DARE training and afford them time to teach the curriculum throughout the school year. But when it comes to the city is going to potentially offer money for DARE to use, that won't be under the police department or even the city government umbrella anymore, because DARE is private. It's not a part of the rest of the police department. It's just something we kind of work together.
Is that Lincoln DARE a non-for-profit, or does it go to a national DARE program and then the funds come back? How does that work?
Every bit of money that I beg and plead for donations, it all stays within Lincoln. And I have helped out some Logan County kids. The sheriff's department, they have a DARE program now. It's building, but if they need some assistance, I'll help them. I always invite them to the same party that your grandson went to. I have them, hey, bring your kids. You know, they're all going to end up in the same high school together. I mean, unless they go to Pulaski, but they bring their kids to kind of a combined effort. But when I first started the program, I had so many organizations that were reaching out to me saying, you know, Kenny Greenslate would donate to this every year. He would give us money for this. And all of those programs were great programs that he was donating to, but a lot of them didn't focus on kids. And I felt awful. I'm like, I'm going out asking for donations for us to go and do things with kids and go into classrooms and hang out with kids and teach kids the DARE curriculum. And a lot of this money isn't going to the kids. So I upset a lot of people when I first took over the program, because I'm like, I'm not going to donate to that anymore. I think it's a great program. I think that what you're doing is amazing. However, it doesn't have anything to do with kids. So I quit doing that, and I've been able to build upon that, and it's just been huge. And I think the big thing is, like, the word will get out, and I constantly have people calling me saying, you know, hey, I heard that you did a cookout for such and such. Could you do a cookout if I put on an event? Can you? Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, it's a very positive thing, not just for myself and the other DARE officers, but for our entire department and for the city. Everybody loves it.
Any other questions?
If I could add one more thing.
Sure.
If you are looking at any other organizations to, put this money towards, our Crime Stoppers, our local Lincoln-Logan County Crime Stoppers, when a bunch of the Illinois laws changed, most of their funding came from the state. And our laws changed, and they've lost, I was told today, between 75 and 90% of their funding, where they were getting, like $500 a month from the state or through donations. Last month, they got $50. So it's another option. If you're looking for any other places that this money could go, it is definitely a prevention when you consider people calling in tips and things like that. They also give out scholarships every year. It's a program that I would hate to see leave. And I think if you talk with any police officer, they'll tell you that it's a pretty big part of our department, the sheriff's department. So, and I spoke with one of the guys that's on the Crime Stoppers board, and he said he's more than willing to come and answer any questions too, if that were to be an option.
Is that separate from the department as well?
Yes.
Crime Stoppers? Okay.
Yep. We don't control any of their funds. We don't oversee any of that. Basically, all we have is an established phone line for Crime Stoppers and an email address. And that's pretty much all the city has to do with it.
Does Crime Stopper money go out and come back in where DARE stays 100% here?
Well, Crime Stoppers money does go back out, yeah. So a tipster, no matter where they may be, it doesn't matter if you're a resident of Chicago or a resident of Lincoln. If you call in a tip and an arrest is made based on that information, there'll be a payout to that person. So yeah, that money does end up going back out, but who knows where it goes, because Crime Stoppers is built to be anonymous.
But Lincoln and Logan County Crime Stoppers, so there are Crime Stoppers organizations that team up with other counties or other jurisdictions. Ours stays in Lincoln and Logan County. Like the chief said, if somebody from Chicago calls in and says, hey, I have a relative that lives somewhere, they're wanted for murder and they're in your town, I know you're looking for them, they may get paid out for that Crime Stoppers tip. But from what I understand, the money that they get in doesn't then go to a national Crime Stoppers organization, and then they get a percentage of that back. It all stays here, and they distribute it how they need to with tips and, like I said, scholarships, things like that.
Okay, anything else? Ms. O'Donohue, this was your topic. Anything else to add? Okay, thank you for coming.
No problem.
We appreciate your time.
If you have any other questions, I have an email. Feel free to reach out. Yep.
Thanks. Okay. Moving on to the consent agenda this evening. Consists of 7A, payment of bills, 7B, approval of April 1st, 2024 regular city council meeting, April 15th, 2024 regular city council meeting, April 15th, 2024 special committee of the whole meeting, April 23rd, 2024 public hearing, budget meeting, April 23rd, 2024 special voting meeting. 7C would be approval of request from the Logan Rail Splitter Antique Car Club to permit the closing of the 100 block of South Kickapoo Street on Saturday, May 25th, 2024, Saturday, June 22nd, 2024, Saturday, July 27th, 2024. Yeah, one too many twos in there. 2024. Saturday, August 31st, 2024, and September 28th, 2024, from 8 a.m. until 11 a.m. for the Cars and Coffee meetings. And 7D, approval of request from the Lincoln Park District to permit the closing of various city streets on Thursday, July 4th, 2024, from 9 a.m. until 11 a.m. for the 4th of July Children's Parade. And 7E, approval of request from Spirited Republic to permit the opening time to be 10 a.m., 1 hour early on Sunday, May 12th, 2024.
Second.
Alderwoman O'Donohue made the motion. Alderman Sanders, second. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Sanders?
Yes.
Mr. Parrott?
Yes.
Mr. Downs?
Yes.
Mrs. Ross?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Donohue?
Yes.
Mr. Eimer?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Okay, next item up is item 8A, ordinance 4-12 of the Lincoln City Code titled Solar Regulations.
So moved.
Second.
Alderman Bateman made the motion. Alderman Downs, second. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Downs?
Yes.
Mrs. Ross?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Donohue?
Yes.
Mr. Eimer?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Sanders?
Yes.
Mr. Parrott?
Yes.
Okay, next item is 8B, resolution to allocate cannabis sales tax.
Second.
Alderwoman O'Donohue made the motion. Alderman Parrott, second. Discussion? Alderman Bateman.
I would like to make an amendment to make that a 90-10 with 10% going to DARE.
I'll second it.
You have no idea what she does. That was a drip in the bucket. And she could do so much more.
I get that, but it's 100% increase from what we talked about, and we're behind on the pensions. And I mean, that's a pressing concern. We're already giving her 5%. She can, I mean, I'm happy to work with her to fundraise. I mean, I don't know about 10% of city money.
Sam, she's not going to sit here and say this in public. She just barely touched on it. She's buying kids shoes. And
Hey, she
coats.
seems
so
like an
before we-
awesome woman. But
Before we move on, for the record, Alderman Bateman made an amended motion and Alderwoman O'Donohue, second. Mr. Eimer.
I agree with Sam. I can't agree with you, Kevin, on that. I mean, why don't we go with the 5% and then increase it? You want to increase it, then come backwards. Let's take one step at a time, put one foot in front of the other. I mean, let's do the 5%, and if she needs more money, then we'll discuss it again. We have a serious problem with pensions we need to address. And it's going to take 16 years to straighten it up. It's going to take a lot of money to straighten it up. I'm for DARE program. I think she does a wonderful job. But let's take one step at a time with it.
Mr. Conzo.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I think what Alderman Downs, Alderman Eimer just said is, in both cases, very accurate. And I've talked about this numerous times about the underfunding pension. We've got to start moving that further in the right direction, and we have started doing that with increased budget transfers from the general fund and some other things, using the utility tax. But we need to go further with it. This council has rejected even the smallest increases in the amount, not the tax rate, because we have never asked for an increase in the tax rate, but in the amount of the tax levy for the pension funds. It's got to come from somewhere, and this would be a good start to increasing that level.
Ms. Ross?
I have a couple of questions. One is for the city treasurer. We don't know what that amount is yet, right? We don't have,
About
Anything
to
that-
get to full funding, no, we don't know.
We
But
don't
we
know.
know we're a long way from it.
What?
We know we're a long way from it.
no, I meant the amount that we'll be taking in from the cannabis.
No, we
You
don't
know
really.
what that amount
It's only
is.
an estimate, and we don't have enough months tracked yet to be able to know that. I'm hoping by the time we get to the appropriation, we will know, and certainly, if not then, probably by the middle of the fiscal year, because it's really difficult to tell.
Now, in the amount that we give through that, there will be more money than what we have budgeted in the past. So
Yes,
that will be a move forward.
exactly.
I think of the youth in our community, and I think of youth nationwide, and we know that there's been a lot higher suicide rate among young people than there ever has been before. I truly like to invest in our young people, and I know that this program only goes up to the 7th grade. And I don't know how they fund the programs through the high school or the junior high in those areas, but I think that anything that we could do that would help, say, we want to make sure our young people have a quality of life that does not involve drugs, that this is a good place to start. Once we find out what that amount is that we're taking in, if we want to amend this, let's say come July, I think July is when we do the appropriations. We could look at it then or look at it next year. 1 year isn't gonna take a lot out of the pension.
Mr. Conzo, what were the amount of the first two payments we received, do you recall?
One was about the first one was just a few dollars, because it was like 500 and some dollars, because it was for 4 days. One of them was just over 6,000, like approximately 6,100, and the other was about 5,900, as I recall. So, they're going to average, if that continues, that would average about 6,000. But we don't know that, because that's not
Right.
really enough months to really make an accurate, what I would be comfortable saying is a accurate projection.
Agreed. Alderman Bateman?
That being said, 10% would be between $400 and $600 a month. I hate to say it, but $400 to $600 a month is not going to break the pension program, especially when the state of Illinois is taking it over. We don't know where they're investing the money, and it was just a newspaper article 2 weeks ago that Pritzker's looking at changing it yet again. So I understand we need to fund pensions, but this is the youth of today and the youth of this city. That's very important to me, along with the pensions of our fire and police, but we're not talking like thousands and thousands of dollars here. We're talking at an average $400 to $600 a month would be going to DARE. That would give her, and like she says, she goes long times without any money coming in. At least she could sit back and know she has a few $100s a month that she can spend on programs that would help her schedule more programs.
Alderman Parrott?
So from year to year, she doesn't know how much money that she spent on DARE? I don't think we got an answer how much she
Correct,
has.
because it changes every year. The needs of DARE change drastically with the needs of the children and the
I guess
community.
it would have been nice to hear at least how much money she spent, for the last few years, so it kind of gives us an idea. I mean, we're kind of going at this a little bit blind. That would have been nice. And then, if they receive these funds, I hope that people would continue to give so that she could build, to Kevin's point, I mean, she could do more stuff at that point. And so,
The DARE program is healthy in Lincoln now. It was not before she took it over, but it is healthy now. I don't, the reason why I don't and Deputy Chief Comstock didn't have any answers to provide you the last meeting is because we don't have anything to do with DARE except for to support DARE by offering a place for them to train officers at our police station, offering time for the DARE officers to teach their curriculum, things like that. It's not something that we keep track of because it's separate from Lincoln PD.
And I don't know, I got a clear answer. So if the money comes in, who does it come into, and then who oversees the expenditures of that?
DARE.
But what DARE? I asked if it was a local DARE or a national DARE.
Yeah, so
There's a local DARE here.
Christie has her own accounts, correct, and then there's Illinois DARE and then DARE America. So Illinois DARE, she's actually the secretary, I think, for the state of Illinois, and oversees all of the DARE programs when it comes to state funding. But hopefully I'm not wrong about it. It is something like that. Again, DARE is a separate entity, so there's things that I don't know about it because it's not under my purview.
Alderman Eimer.
No, I'm 100% for this program also, and I think the world of Christie. I think she's a very nice person and a great officer. Once again, why don't we start at 5%, see where we're at, and it's easy to, give more. When you start up, and then you you don't look good when you give higher and then you take back. That just doesn't look good. It's not going to take much for us all to agree to raise it if the money's there. Chuck doesn't even have the numbers yet of what we're going to get in. I mean, I think it's just common sense as far as, fine, we're giving 5%, we're doing something.
Okay. So there is a motion on the floor. Ms. Rolfs, do you have something else to add?
Well, I believe that if the city is giving money to the DARE program, we will have to have an accountability of that money, right?
We have asked that of everybody else we've given money to.
So I would assume that if, Christie would know that if we're giving her money, that has to be accounted for maybe on a monthly basis to the city, so that we know that. I mean, if we're concerned about the fact we don't have enough information to make a very valid amount of percentage, 5 or 10%, then we need to get the figures that will teach us to do that.
So, and Chief kind of touched on this, but I was going to ask while she was here, if this is something that the council could allocate in the police fund or like in a line item within your budget, and then the police department could sponsor that DARE program. That way you would at least have an idea and we'd have something to track.
I think that would be the easiest way to do it. I'd need to have some time to put more thought into it, but if you wanted to create a line under the police department's budget, obviously that's available to you immediately, whereas DARE not being under the umbrella of city government, it's not going to be as easily accessible to the council. That information.
Okay. So there's an amendment to the agenda item on the floor. Is there any other discussion on that? Okay, so for the record, the amended motion is to increase the amount given to DARE to 10%, leaving 90% for pension funding for police and fire. Roll call on that, please.
You were a second, right? Yes. Mrs. O'Donoghue?
Yes.
Mr. Eimer?
No.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Sanders?
Yes.
Mr. Parrott?
No.
Mr. Downs?
No.
Mrs. Ross?
Yes.
Okay, so the amended motion passes 4-3, correct? Yes. Okay, so then we will take roll call on item 8B as amended. Any further discussion before roll call? Roll call, please.
Mr. Parrott?
Yes.
Mr. Downs?
Yes.
Mrs. Ross?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Donahue? Mr. Eimer?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Sanders?
Yes.
Okay, next item is item 11A, approval of the mayoral reappointment of Eric Agnew to the Fire and Police Commission for a 3-year term.
So moved. Second.
Alderwoman O'Donahue made the motion, Alderwoman Rolfs second. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Ross?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Eimer?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Sanders?
Yes.
Mr. Parrott?
Yes.
Mr. Downs?
Yes.
Okay, next item is 11B, approval of the mayoral appointment to Johnny Tibbs to the Economic Development Commission.
Move
So
to
moved.
approve.
Second.
Alderwoman Rolfs made the motion, Alderman Parrott second. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Parrott?
Yes.
Mr. Downs?
Yes.
Mrs. Ross?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Eimer?
No.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Sanders?
Yes.
Next up is item 11C, approval of the mayoral appointment of Craig Eimer to the Economic Development Commission.
Move to approve.
Second.
Alderman Bateman made the motion, Alderman Sanders second. Discussion?
Yeah. Can you tell me why there wasn't a page in the packet for Mr. Eimer?
A memo. We overlooked putting a memo in the packet.
Sorry.
It was an oversight. Okay, any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Sanders?
No.
Mr. Parrott?
Yes.
Mr. Downs?
No.
Mrs. Ross?
No.
Mrs. O'Donahue?
No.
Mr. Eimer?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
No.
Okay, next item up is 11D, approval of the mayoral appointment of Tony Zerkammer to the Liquor Commission.
Second.
Alderwoman O'Donahue made the motion, Alderwoman Rolfs second. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Ross?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Eimer?
Nope.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Sanders?
Yes.
Mr. Parrott?
Yes.
Mr. Downs?
Yes.
Next up is item 11E, approval of the donation of $5,000 to the Lincoln Park District for the July 4th, 2024 fireworks display.
So moved.
Second.
Alderman Parrott made the motion, Alderman Downs second. Discussion? Ms.
Do we
O'Donoghue.
happen to know how much is being put into this fund by the Park District? Like, in general? I mean, they're asking. us
Total
for
contributions?
$5,000, so, I mean, what's the total contribution from the Park District and?
I don't recall an amount overall. Wasn't it last year 15,000?
That's what I was thinking, 50.
And then we contributed 5 last year as well. I believe that's how that broke
I
down.
think the county gives some, but I don't know who else donates. They had a list
Yeah.
last year.
I think 15 is, we can pull the emails back up, but I think it was 15 last
I
year.
mean, I think we just had this big discussion about giving money to children, and, I mean, I think we're having less discussion about giving $5,000 for fireworks, kind of. I don't know, rubs me a little wrong, but.
You want to make an amendment to lower?
You know, I think it's an unknown for them. So they get the cost of it in too. I don't think we find out the exact cost till they get them paid for.
For the fireworks display? Yeah, I talked to Becky about it. Becky Straight at the Park District, and her words were, it's getting more expensive to do the fireworks display and you get less. So the cost of everything's going up, including that. But I've always been a big supporter of this because Lincoln is the primary benefit. We get the primary benefit in our community from that, for the kids and families and stuff to go out there and partake in that. That's why I've always supported it, even when I was on the council. Even if, regardless of what amount we support.
Well, there's something about the 4th of July that just says America. And I think, you know, Lincoln is that kind of a community. And so it's giving something to the community that is good.
Okay. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Downs?
Yes.
Mrs. Ross?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Eimer?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Sanders?
Yes.
Mr. Parrott?
Yes.
Okay, next item is 11F, approval of economic development grant to QWE Inc., Greg Patel, at 201 Madingen Drive for entry door replacement in an amount not to exceed $7,500.
Motion to approve.
You want a second?
Second.
Motion? Okay. Alderman Downs made the motion, Alderman Parrott second. Mr. Eimer?
What exactly is this for, 201 Madigan Drive?
It's a
Banquet hall.
Oh, for his.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Parrott?
Yes.
Mr. Downs?
Yes.
Mrs. Ross?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Eimer?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Sanders?
Yes.
Okay, next item is 11G, approval of economic development grant to Small Town Creations at 115 South Kickapoo Street for 3 replacement windows in an amount not to exceed $7,450.
Move to approve.
Second.
Alderwoman O'Donahue made the motion, Alderman Sanders second. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Sanders?
Yes.
Mr. Parrott?
Yes.
Mr. Downs?
Yes.
Mrs. Ross?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Eimer?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Next item is 11H, approval of economic development grant to Prairie Land Title Company Incorporated at 507 Pulaski Street for roof replacement in an amount not to exceed $7,500.
Move to approve.
Second.
Alderwoman Ross made the motion, Alderwoman O'Donahue second. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. O'Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Eimer?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Sanders?
Yes.
Mr. Parrott?
Yes.
Mr. Downs?
Yes.
Mrs. Ross?
Yes.
Next is 11I, approval of economic development grant to Lincoln Community Theater at 410 Broadway Street for tuck pointing in an amount not to exceed $7,500.
Move to approve.
Alderwoman Ross made
Second.
the motion, Alderwoman O'Donahue second. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. O'Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Eimer?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Sanders?
Yes.
Mr. Parrott?
Yes.
Mr. Downs?
Yes.
Mrs. Ross?
Yes.
Next item is 11J, approval of economic development grant to Scott Mack and Infinity Real Estate LLC at 714 Keokuk Street for roof replacement in an amount not to exceed $6,840.
Motion to approve. Second.
Alderman Downs made the motion, Alderman Sanders second. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Sanders?
Yes.
Mr. Parrott?
Yes.
Mr. Downs?
Yes.
Mrs. Ross?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Eimer?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
11K is next. Approval of economic development grant to Scott Mack and Infinity Real Estate LLC at 702 through 708 Keokuk Street for roof replacement in an amount not to exceed $7,500.
Move to approve.
Second.
Alderwoman O'Donahue made the motion, Alderman Sanders second. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Downs? Oh,
Mr. Sanders.
oh, I'm sorry. I put it on the wrong one. Sorry about that. Mr. Sanders?
Yes.
Mr. Parrott?
Yes.
Mr. Downs?
Yes.
Mrs. Ross?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Eimer?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Okay, next up is 11L, approval of facade grant to Small Town Creations at 115 South Kickapoo Street for tuck pointing and brick repair in an amount not to exceed $4,150.
Move to.
Second.
Alderman Sanders made the motion, Alderman Downs second. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Downs?
Yes.
Mrs. Ross?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Eimer?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Sanders?
Yes.
Mr. Parrott?
Yes.
Next item is 11M, approval of facade grant to Acme 007 LLC at 401 Broadway Street for tuck pointing and brick repair in an amount not to exceed $8,500.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Alderman Downs made the motion, Alderman Parrott second. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Parrott?
Yes.
Mr. Downs?
Yes.
Mrs. Ross?
No.
Mrs. O'Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Eimer?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Sanders?
Yes.
Okay, next item is 11N, approval of facade grant to Hild Brothers Construction and Remodeling LLC at 118 North McLean Street for exterior repairs, window and door replacement in an amount not to exceed $10,000.
Move to approve.
Second.
Alderwoman O'Donahue made the motion, Alderman Sanders second. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Sanders?
Yes.
Mr. Parrott?
Yes.
Mr. Downs?
Yes.
Mrs. Ross?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Eimer?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Okay, the next item is 11O, approval of funding agreement between the City of Lincoln and the Logan County Regional Planning for fiscal year 2024-2025. Before anybody makes a motion, I want to consult the city attorney. It was brought to my attention during the regional planning meeting that there is a clause at the bottom of this that basically doesn't require us to renew this. It's an automatic renew clause. Can you confirm that for us?
We have a credit with
We have
them
a credit with
until
them.
July.
The statement at the bottom reads, "This agreement shall be automatically renewed each year unless either party chooses to terminate the agreement by submitting a 30-day written notice." Mr. Hoblet,
That, I will confirm that is definitely what it
I
says.
just wanted to read it for the record.
If I go back up here. See, the agreement is approved. I would assume that this has already been entered into at an earlier date. Okay.
Last year, our regional planning already voted on it. Well, Kevin, we didn't actually vote during that meeting though, did we, because of this?
No, we didn't vote, and we haven't voted for a while because they didn't charge us anything for 1 year at least.
Last year.
So
The reason why I was
it never got brought up.
The reason why I'm inquiring is that if this is the first time this agreement has come before the council, then obviously we need to be voted upon so long as the funds are allocated to it, and that is voted upon by the council, then as the agreement states, it will renew each year unless that notice provision kicks in.
Well, we can go ahead and vote on it just to make sure, but
Because I don't know if the agreement prior to this said that in there. Because if it didn't say that in there, then
Yeah.
I would think they need to vote on this.
Right. It'd probably just be safe
I
just to
think
vote
it-
on it at this time.
Okay, so I just wanted to bring that up for a matter of record, just so that if everybody saw that, they didn't have the same question that was raised to me. So, okay. On that note, I'll entertain a motion to approve in a second.
Move to approve.
Second.
Alderwoman O'Donahue made the motion, Alderman Bateman second. Ms. Rolfs?
will we bring it to our attention, or do we just kind of go along and 10 years from now, we keep paying that? I mean, Chuck. I'm sorry.
We would have to budget for it every year, so if we didn't budget for it, then at that point, whoever's on the budget committee or council could say, we've decided not to fund this agreement anymore and exercise our 30-day out.
Yeah.
We did have a great meeting the other night. There's a lot of good discussion.
Yeah, I think the future will dictate how this contract gets handled, but until council decides that they're not satisfied with that arrangement, it would continue and we would continue to budget. Alderman Parrott,
When does it expire?
fiscal, well,
Well, I mean, the
this agreement is for fiscal year 2024, 2025. So technically,
is it the same fiscal, is it our fiscal year or is it the county's, is it the same? Do we have the
Yeah,
same fiscal year?
it's ours.
County's is December.
It's our fiscal year.
So it's our fiscal year, so we would have to give them 30 days before the end of our fiscal year?
Yes.
And if that's the case, we would have to have this discussion earlier,
During budget talks.
during budget talks, right?
So this agreement will terminate, well, actually it'll automatically renew, but the date on it is April 30th, 2025, if approved. So you would have to have a conversation in probably early March.
So should we put that list on our radar for next year to have this discussion at least in March or whatever, if we wanted to not renew it 30 days out, or can we do, 30 days
Yeah.
out past the fiscal year? We still owe them the money, right?
Yeah.
We've got a credit with them right now.
Right now we got a credit,
I'm
but
just saying
when,
for I'm sorry.
when, I'm gonna speak for you, Chuck. When Chuck does the budget, these kind of things, we reach out to them and say, is it the same dollar amount? These things that automatically, in this case, renew. And
I guess
and if it does go up, then yes, then you would be.
I guess what I'm saying is if at any point, let's say it goes real south this year with them, so then, should we have a discussion in February or whatever about not renewing so the council can vote on that, and then that way we can give them 30 days notice?
Technically, you can have that discussion at any time.
So the reason I guess I ask is if after the fiscal year and we still have a contract with them, we still owe them, or it would be prorated, or how would that work necessarily?
Typically, they get prorated, right?
You get prorated? Oh, okay, all right. I just didn't know. I didn't want to have to pay for it, and
And they're very easy to work with.
okay.
I see what, I mean, it would be quite easy to put it in somebody's calendar, Ashley's calendar or something. At the end of February, just put the first cow in March. Put this on the agenda, just where do we stand and what are we doing?
So we'll let Ms. Bateman and Mr. Conzo, I think it would be best to allow them to handle that, because this is not the only agreement that we have. We have a tourism funding agreement, we have this funding agreement, it's not uncommon for us. You okay with that, Mr. Parrott?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so, is there any other discussion regarding this? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Sanders?
Yes.
Mr. Parrott?
Yes.
Mr. Downs?
Yes.
Mrs. Ross?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Donoghue? Yes. Mr. Eimer?
Yes.
And can we get that added to the page for the agreements? That transparency page we have? Okay. Because I was out there looking for last year's. Okay. All right, next item is 11P, approval of contract for legal services between John Hoblet Esquire and the City of Lincoln for a period of 4 years.
Move to approve. Second.
Alderman Sanders made the motion, Alderman Parrott second.
Sam seconded.
Oh, I thought you did.
I was
Alderman
going to. He beat me to it.
Okay. Alderman Downs seconded. I didn't want to take that away from you again. Is there any discussion? Ms. Rolfs?
I had a question that I thought about last week and didn't ask it.
Okay.
But when we look at our city attorney's salary, I had the question about his employees. We don't pay any of his employees at all. All his employees come out of
The amount of money that we pay Mr. Hoblet is for him to decide how to spend it, and how he staffs his office is his discretion, not ours.
Okay, well, I just thought, assuming that he possibly might use some of the salary we give him to do that, to me, that played a part in my mind as looking at the raise.
I think he could speak for himself, but I know he has employees.
I have 2 employees. I have one that currently serves on a part-time, well, both part-time, one's almost full-time. Another one's part-time. I have one over in Clinton. I have an office here in Lincoln. I have an office in Clinton too, from which I rent. So I do have overhead, and yes, the money you guys do pay me do go to cover those costs of those offices and whatnot, and help me run my business. So.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Excuse me, Mr. Downs,
Yes.
Mrs. Ross,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Donoghue,
Yes.
Mr. Eimer. Yes. Mr. Bateman,
Yes.
Mr. Sanders,
Yes.
Mr. Parrott.
Yes.
That brings us to the end of the agenda, brings us down to announcements. Does anybody have an announcement that they'd like to make? And then I'll make, I want to give the council a very brief update on the Logan Correctional Center closure. Alderman Bateman.
I don't know if this is an announcement, but I don't know how much money we got left in ARPA, but we just spent a lot of money helping other businesses tuck point their bricks. Stand out front of this building. I think we need to take a look at that and maybe get an estimate. If we can't do it this year, at least try to put, I know we're trying to get the council chambers and downstairs refreshed with some paint, which hasn't been done in
Probably a decade or more.
well over a decade for this year. But I'm just thinking we need to start thinking about it, because there's some bricks down there you can stick your fingers in. So I hate to put a new roof on a building that's crumbling at the bottom.
We can get an estimate on it. Mr. Parrott.
I was just going to ask about, I had 2 things, but an update on the roofing?
Yeah, Mr. Woodhull, can you give an update on the roofing?
It's going on.
Is there a completion? I saw that. It's been about a week or so. Are we about done with it, or?
No, we've got the flat roof still to do, and they've got, it's a well ahead schedule. It was estimated around 6 weeks. Right now, it's certainly on that.
6 weeks, all right. And this is that company from Texas? Yes. Okay. And then the last thing, Walt, maybe you know, or Wes, any update on the Department of Juvenile Justice building out there or anything like that?
Not
when
really
their
a
completion
time
date
frame.
is or anything like that?
Not really a time frame.
No time frame.
There's still a ways to go on it. It's
Okay.
I think they originally was early
Fall,
next
wasn't
year,
it?
wasn't it?
Late fall or early next year in the spring?
We've been out there, what, a month ago?
Yeah.
Are they going to put a fence up around their property?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right.
It's already there in some places.
Portions of it.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Gonzo.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to remind everybody, the Humane Society of Logan County is sponsoring the breakfast at the American Legion this Sunday from 8 to 11 a.m. If anybody is interested in that, I will be happy to assist them. So if you've had breakfast out there with other years or other sponsors, you know it's always very good.
And the
Pie.
and the
Oh, I'm glad you asked that. Yes, they're going to have pie sale too.
and the occasion
Do they
is
have what?
Mother's Day, right?
Very delicious pies. Lots of them.
They go fast though. Sell them fast.
Fast. Yeah, they're usually gone within the first hour and a half.
Yep. Okay. Any other announcements? Okay. Real quick, Ms. Rawls and I were talking last week, and I told her that I would give an update on Logan Correctional Center. It feels like we've been chasing them with this topic, and by them I mean Department of Corrections and the Governor's Office. I will say that Senator Sally Turner, Senator Doris Turner, and Representative Bill Howder, Chairwoman Davenport, myself, and Andrea Runge with LEAD have had multiple meetings with that group of individuals representing DOC in the state. We've had a couple Zoom calls, and then last week on Tuesday, I believe, we went down to Springfield, and we had a sit down with them, a face to face, which I thought was a very good meeting. But I will say that the COGFA report that's out there, it makes recommendations to the governor's office to close the facility and move it to Stateville. So we are trying desperately to present them with all of the data and rationale why we believe that they should keep that facility here on the property at Logan. A lot of what they're telling us has to do with the programs that are offered, the health services to those that are incarcerated, and then a number of other things. So I don't want to get into all of those details tonight, but I will say that the COGFA group is required by law to have a public hearing, and they're going to. But those of us in that small group I just mentioned have organized a Save Logan Town Hall. It's going to be on Facebook Live, and it will be on Wednesday the 15th at 6:30. And it will be streamed from Senator Sally Turner's Facebook page, not the city's. We can share that, but it'll stem from there because her staff's helping organize a lot of that. If you have questions about that, you can submit them ahead of time, and then we'll try to address them on the call. But the intention is to elaborate a little bit further on what I've talked with here and give you all of the data, the statistical data that Andrea's pulled together, and all of the rationale. So I would encourage everybody to kind of tune into that and watch it. So we'll all be on that Facebook Live, and we'll continue to update you. I think this topic's getting momentum, a lot of traction now from the union as well. And I was just made aware that there's Save Logan signs throughout town now, and those must have just gone up today because I haven't seen any up until today. So, Oh, there you go. You can buy them at Lincoln Printers for $10 if you'd like to support the cause. Only thing I will say on that is, if you do, because this is why it was brought to my attention, if you do purchase one of the signs, please put it on your private property and not in the public right of way. That's what was brought to my attention, and the individual was correct that we try hard to keep the signs out of the public right of way. So, but get a sign and support the cause if you can. We need to keep the prison here. Mr. Parrott, and then Ms. Rolfs.
Have they given a time frame from when they're closing Logan?
They said that after they've made so to answer your question, they have a timeline they have to follow, but there's other things that could happen that impacts the timeline. But their recommendation is, it sounds to us, to build the new facility at Stateville and keep Logan operational for that duration, which they estimate to be 3 to 5 years. Yeah. Based on the conversations we've had, I get the feeling that timeline will be accelerated. That was one of the things that I had mentioned to that group when I went down there, was that I feel like we're trying to be very reactive. So we'll have a conversation, they'll tell us something's happening, and let's say they say it's going to happen on Monday at 5 o'clock. Well, it happens Monday at 8 o'clock. Or like the COGFA report that got released on Friday, we weren't given any heads up that was being released. I asked them for that as a courtesy because I started getting calls from all the news media outlets, and it's kind of hard for me to speak to something that I'm not aware of. So, and they're receptive, but they've got a process to go through. So 3 to 5 years. Ms. Rolfs.
I had 3 pins here. 2 of them weren't working, so I didn't catch the time of Sally Turner's.
6:30 p.m.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, any other questions on the Logan closure? Okay, I'll continue to keep everybody updated. We are gonna try to put a web page together to take all of the reports. There's also a letter that you can submit to the governor's office, pleading your case to keep it here as well. I know Dara Entwistle has some at her office. Andrea has them. I can get them to you. They're kind of a standard letter format that you can fill in what's important to you and then keep the other nuts and bolts of the topic in there. So if you want that letter, we can post that on the city Facebook page so that you can get access to it. So the web page is coming. And if anybody feels that they can contribute to this, please reach out. We've had individuals that, you know, have connections one way or another, and they've offered good advice. I got hit up at the dinner that we went to last week, and some good conversation came out of it, and people that are, you know, understanding of the process, they're willing to step in and help us. So momentum's picking up. Okay, and then the last thing I wanted to briefly mention was I want to thank Ms. Metelko and Mr. Landers and everybody who played a role in our parks, Alderman Downs, Alderman Bateman. We did the ribbon cut for Allison Park this past Saturday, and I thought it was a pretty good turnout. We had donuts and drinks for people that came out there. One of the interesting things, though, was there was a couple gentlemen that reached out to me about a month ago, and they were actually traveling Route 66. Matthew and Toby. I didn't get Matthew Mumford. I didn't get Toby's last name. But Toby they're both from England, but Toby lives in Dallas. So Matthew flew into Chicago, Toby flew to Chicago, and they're doing Route 66. They're going to travel it for the next couple weeks. But they brought some books and a copy of the Magna Carta from Lincoln, England. And I'll bring those in, and if anybody wants to take a look at them, I'll have them in my office. It's really cool stuff. I mean, their whole community is built around cathedrals and things of that nature. So I was pretty impressed. So we in turn, I got with Alice at Tourism. Her and Lexi put together a couple baskets of stuff, Route 66, Lincoln and Logan County, and we gave them to take back. So really cool encounter. We don't get to do that often. So I thought it was really, really neat to meet them. Okay. Anybody else have anything?
Just
Mr.
one more,
Barrett.
just to give an update. So Scott Lindy, the gentleman that's painting the mural, has had a little bit of health issues, but he's fine. It's just going a little slower than he had hoped for, and he keeps me updated. And every once in a while, when I'm around with you guys, I've shared some pictures with you guys, and so it's looking good. He's working on the last third of it now. The courthouse, the dome, and such, and I think the tropic sign. Speaking of the tropic sign, I haven't seen it lit up here of late. Is there any news on that?
I wasn't aware of that.
I reported to Allison that parts of it was out here a couple weeks ago, so I don't know if maybe they're working on it. There was like portions of lights that were out of it.
Mr. Landers?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Kevin, you said something to me, and we had him up and worked on it. So, unless there's something else, I don't.
It might be. It's on a timer, isn't it?
Well,
or dimmer.
It's on a timer.
So
But
maybe when I'm looking,
was
it's
got a photo?
But I went out there at
last
an evening one night, and it.
Yeah, no, if it should be on. So
Doesn't it have a photo sensor as well?
no, it's not on a photo cell.
took that off?
It's
It's still dark when I leave at 4:45, so I'll look tomorrow morning and let you know.
But if you see issues with that, report them to me,
You.
and then I'll take care of it from there. I'm usually the one that contacts a sign service to have them come and take a look at it, and then I usually copy Peggy and Alice on it to let them know that it's getting worked on.
Sure. And then I'm sorry.
Did you have something related to that, Mr. Bateman? No. Okay.
And then speaking of Alice and tourism, we're meeting with the Route 66 for our second meeting of since COVID tomorrow at 5:00, and so The first meeting, we had some suggestions, some ideas, some brainstorming of what, we could, do as a city, as a county to help prepare for that Route 66
The centennial celebration.
Centennial, yeah.
Do you, by chance, know off the top of your head the members of that committee? I know it's changed since.
Greg Patel, Joe Ryan, Busty Rhodes. From Spirited, and then Neil Patel, and us two. I think Bill.
Bill Hodder.
Hodder, and then, but he wasn't there at the first meeting, and some other gentleman that we just met for the first time that I can't recall his name, and maybe one or two others that just wasn't able to make it.
Okay.
Logan County representation too, I think, was there as well.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Bateman.
Well, for me, it's been a long time coming, but this week there'll be cranes in the street taking the beams down from the top of the courthouse finally. So the dome is getting much closer to being done. I know they still got a lot of work to do on the building, but
Mr. Bateman, I think Chief wants to interject.
I just heard this afternoon, when my wife got home from work, that they pushed that project. It's not going to happen this week. Courthouse will be closed because of some other things that they're doing, but I think they pushed it to, well, I don't want to say what they pushed it to because I'm not 100% certain.
it's probably weather permitting because it's a
That was-
crane and then beams.
That was part of the problem.
Hope it's not the 17th, because that's third Friday.
I don't know how quick I can.
If it's the 17th, then we'll have to get a hold of them.
Yeah.
So, but still been a long time coming. Nyla's been reporting at the county board forever. I've been on that push for a long time.
Okay. Ms. Rolfs.
And Peggy just mentioned the third Friday. Is there anything going on? I mean, are the plans still as usual?
Yep. Is that on the city website or the third Friday where you can sign up
All
to
the details.
volunteer?
Yeah.
Yeah. The city website and the third Friday Facebook page. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the 17th. Yeah, will be our next one. The committee's ready. We had a meeting a couple weeks ago. I think we're all set. So, if anybody wants to help, we'd gladly take the help, especially during setup and tear down. Those are usually the times that we need help. So,
And the band is that one that's got all the
all the aristocrats.
aristocrats, the like 20-piece band.
The first band?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And if
Nashville Nights one?
no, that one will be in June. What's this one?
Slice in the summer.
Sure. Yes, Slice in the Summer. And then Nashville Nights, and then July will be Under the Sea. Those are the themes for Under the Sea. That's Balloon Fest.
Yeah, Doc Dogs is August.
Yeah.
August we'll have Doc Dogs.
Okay. Anything else to add on it? We have T-shirts left still. If any of the council member want one. Okay. If you want one, don't have one, contact Ms. Bateman. Okay. Any other announcements? Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Alderman Downs made the motion. Alderman Parrott second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Meeting is adjourned at 7:25 p.m.
They need,
I'm just going up for a couple days. Be back on Friday.
Yeah. Okay.
You didn't get back to me, Kevin.
Oh, hold on.
When
Hold on a
I
minute.
wanted to.
I forgot.
I want to say she said something about June.